Hello, this is Greg Allison with Galactic Greg's coming to you on the 5th of May, 2021. Senko did FlyO, at least SpaceX did FlyO today with the SN15, and they stuck their landing. So there's a lot to celebrate there. I'm sure Elon's going to have a good time up in SNL talking about SN15. So, Bob, I think this really gives us a lot of reality here. And hey, by the way, I got a great guest tonight, my old friend from space activism from decades back, a real leader and shaker in the world of space activism, space promotion, trying to bring us a whole new world of Mars, Bob Zubrin. So, Bob, what do you think about our spaceflight revolution?
Well, we've got a spaceflight revolution. I mean, it began to happen around 2010 when SpaceX became real and had a functional, serious launch vehicle, the Falcon 9. But then they really picked up the pace. They made the Falcon 9s reusable. They introduced the Cargo Dragon. Then they introduced the Falcon Heavy, which is like, 3/4 reusable. Then Crew Dragon, and now Starship. And, in the past week, okay, they've launched 2 Falcon 9s and, of course, recovered the first stage, returning, okay, which is something nobody else has ever done. And the 2 Falcon 9s launched 120 satellites, which is about as many as 2 years ago was launched by the whole world in 1 year. Then they launched 4 astronauts to orbit in a Dragon. They took the other Dragon down and landed 4 astronauts. And then, and today, yes, they finally had a successful test of the launch and landing of the Starship prototype. And I should point out, by the way, so this is the 5th try for them on that, and they succeeded. It was the 5th try that they succeeded in doing a successful recovery landing of the first stage of the Falcon 9 as well. And so, I mean, yeah, SpaceX is smart, but they're also tough. Elon is smart. He's also tough. He is willing to push through failures. He had 3 failures on the Falcon 1 before he succeeded. Okay, I think the Falcon 9 did succeed in launch on its first time, but then they had some failures, but they kept on, and the making it reusable failed 4 times before it succeeded, but they kept on, and this is what they've got going for them. People like Beale launched entrepreneurial space company, but he quit even before he ever launched. Okay, and one can name several others of that ilk. And when Musk first came along, people thought that probably happened with him too, but no, he turned it around. But what he has done, in addition to creating these remarkable space flight systems, is proven a point, which is that it's possible for a well-led entrepreneurial team to do things that were previously thought that only the governments of major powers could do. And not only that, do it in 1/3 the time and 1/10 the cost or less, and even do things that they had thought just impossible altogether. And because of that, he has launched an entrepreneurial space flight revolution. There's other people have gotten in the game. In terms of the others that have reached orbit, it's only Rocket Lab, but there's also Jeff Bezos says he's going to do it. Now he's announced he's going to fly people suborbital on July 20th. I hope he does. There's several others. There's at least 5 private companies in China that have gotten serious investment that are trying to create reusable launch vehicles. And, if you look at their designs, they look a lot like the Falcon 9.
Yeah, one of them now looks like the Starship. So they're
right, but the ones that are further along are kind of Falcon 9 knockoffs, and they'll do it. They will do it, and this, they're very good at doing things once other people have shown it's possible, and so they will. And this is why Musk, who's from Silicon Valley after all, knows that he has to make his current systems obsolete, because other people are going to have systems like that pretty soon. And if he wants to stay ahead, he has to make that kind of systems, the systems that he has, as it were, conquered the space market with. He's got to make them obsolete. Whereas almost any other space company before him would just sit on their hands and say, I'm the best, why should I change? But that's how this thing is driving ahead. And when Starship works, yeah, then the Chinese will duplicate that too, and he'll have to have a Starship that's better than Starship. Okay,
Right.
and now another thing that's happened, though, that I think is a very positive development, is that NASA has decided to get on board with this. Okay, NASA awarded the Lunar Human Landing System contract against all expectations to SpaceX. I think everybody expected them to award to the so-called national team, led by Blue Origin, but including Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Draper Labs. Okay, and you know, and which had designed a lunar lander that was straight out of NASA's charts for its moon mission concept. Well, that's a LEM, it looks like.
Yeah, it looked kind of like a limb like this.
But in fact, I think the Blue Origin lander, instead of being 2 stages, was 3-stage expendable.
Oh, okay.
And it had to be launched by 3 separate expendable rendezvous rockets that would rendezvous at the gateway, along with an SLS that would deliver the astronauts in a capsule, creating the most awkward lunar architecture anyone could imagine. And Musk came along with a concept that was really orthogonal to that. And there's a lot of technical risk there, okay, for sure. But he's offering a great deal of capability. And unlike these other concepts, it's directly traceable to Mars. Okay, he's not demonstrating on the moon something that can evolve to Mars. He is taking a Mars flight system and using it to do the moon. I mean, that's literally the case here.
Yes. Yes.
And in fact, if this goes forward, I mean, there's no if to this because
they're being challenged. You know, they got challenged, and NASA pulled back on that award.
It doesn't matter because Musk is going to push ahead anyway.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And NASA hasn't pulled back. The award's been frozen because it's been put in litigation by challenges.
Right.
I think the challenges are weak because both of the other teams, their bids, I mean, just on the face of it, they bid twice as much.
Oh yeah.
And we're offering less capability, so it was less for more money. It'd be difficult to argue that NASA didn't have a rational case in making the choice it did. But they'll hold that procurement up for 6 months or a year while they do that. But it won't matter because SpaceX is pushing ahead on the Starship development anyway. You know, SpaceX position is not, well, I'll do something if you give me money. SpaceX position is, I'm doing something and we would certainly like you to support us, but we're going to do this. And by the way, that's to me what gives me the greatest hope, because you know, these moon programs, Mars programs, asteroid programs, these things come and go as the political winds change when their only support is the government.
Right.
But now we have something that's going to continue whether the government supports it or not. I think it's good that the government supports it. And frankly, what NASA has done in choosing Starship as its human landing system is it's placed its bet on an entirely different concept of operations of spaceflight. Instead of infrequent, extremely expensive, expendable, one-of-a-kind missions, okay, they're talking about high volume launch rate with the same thing again and again. And not only that, you know, Musk's position on Starship is he's not going to build 1 ship or 3 ships. He's going to build 100 ships or in other words, in Boca Chica, they're not building a ship, they're building a shipyard.
Oh yeah.
And they've already been turning out Starship prototypes at a rate of 1 a month. And, you know, when I visited him in Boca Chica just about a year ago, they were staffing up for this, but he said, we're going to go to 1 a month next year. I'm going to be 1 a week after that. And eventually like 1 a day. And well, who knows? Okay. I mean, it's almost hard to believe, but he certainly made good on the 1 a month. And even at 1 a month, in a couple of years, there'll be 20 of the damn things. Okay. And then 50. You know, NASA built I guess, 5 shuttles in the course of a 30-year program. That's one every 6 years. Musk is building Starships at a rate of 12 per year. So, and now if you have a lot of these things, okay, NASA at the height of the shuttle program was able to get 8 launches in 1 year. The average was about 4 per year. But they got 8 launches because they had 4 functioning shuttles at that time, and each one flew about twice. Okay, now if you've got 20 functioning Starships and each one flies, say, 12 times in the year, you turn them around at a rate of 1 a month. Okay, what's that? That's 240 flights in a year. Okay, which is just a totally different concept. And at which point, the idea of putting a Starship in Earth orbit and refueling it to go to Mars with 6 or 7 tankers doesn't seem so fantastical. Okay, and actually, that's an easier job for them than this lunar ferry from the Gateway to the surface, which requires about 14 tankers to fuel the tankers to go to the Gateway to refuel, so forth. Now, another thing that this does, I believe, is this concept commits NASA to in situ resource utilization. Because, see, if you go with an ultralight ascent vehicle like the Apollo LEM, you do get some benefit from being able to make ascent propellant on the moon, but it's not a program driver. But if you've got a 100-ton ascent vehicle instead of a 2-ton ascent vehicle, then all of a sudden the ability to make ascent propellant on the moon matters a lot more.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I think, therefore, ISRU is going to move up the chart on NASA's priorities. And something else is going to move up the chart, which is surface power. And because, if you are making ISRU on the scale support a LEM type vehicle, you can do this with 50, 100 kilowatts.
Yeah.
But if you want to do it on a scale to support a Starship, you need a megawatt. So we're talking nuclear power in the megawatt range. And for surface power, which enables ISRU. And of course, this is what Musk really needs for Mars. Okay, because the Musk Mars plan, ISRU isn't just a nice to have, it is fundamental. Oh, Starship uses methane oxygen, which can be made on Mars out of carbon dioxide and water. It's actually much easier than the lunar ISRU processes, but you need the power. It takes energy to turn carbon dioxide and water into methane and oxygen.
Oh, yeah.
And that's how you do it. Now, in this connection, by the way, I do want to tell you a story, because you're in Huntsville still, I think?
Yes, I'm still in Huntsville.
Okay. Well, von Braun had, he had quite a team. One guy on his team, Stollinger, was big advocate of electric propulsion. But another guy, Kraft Erika, was an advocate of lunar development. And he had very interesting ideas on this. And in fact, in the 80s, I had some very interesting conversations with Kraft, because at that time, I was a very strong supporter of nuclear electric propulsion. Okay, I thought this was it. I mean, we'll increase the specific impulse factor of 10. This is what you want to do, right? Okay, chemical engines, they're not going to get much better than they are. They can't. Okay. But Kraft made the following point to me. He said the following. Okay. And at this time, nobody knew there was water on the moon, but we certainly knew there was oxygen on the moon. Okay. Yep, and said, imagine you have a lunar ascent vehicle. Okay. And it runs on hydrogen oxygen. He had invented the RL-10 engine, right? Powers the Centaur. Would be a good engine for a lunar ascent vehicle.
Oh, yeah.
Hydrogen oxygen. It burns with oxygen to hydrogen at a weight ratio of 6 to 1. Okay. Has a specific impulse of 450 seconds. Okay, and no chemical engine's never going to get much better than that. Nope. I get 460, whatever.
We're still using that RL.
Okay, but let's say you made the oxygen for that rocket on the moon. So you'd have to bring the hydrogen, because we didn't know there was hydrogen on the moon. But the total amount of propellant that you're going to use is going to be 7 times as much as the hydrogen, because you got the hydrogen is 1 part plus 6 parts, oxygen makes 7. You got a leverage of 7 to 1 on the propellant. You multiply 7 times 450 seconds, you get 3,000 seconds specific impulse. It's the same as electric propulsion, but at high thrust, and you're not dragging around this heavy nuclear reactor. So in other words, and this is what converted me to ISRU. I remained and remain a very strong supporter of space nuclear power, but the place where you need it on a surface, and then with that power, you can convert that energy into portable form as chemical propellant through ISRU. And this is also true with Mars. So you get effective specific impulses as high as electric propulsion, but high thrust, lightweight engines instead of, 100-ton multi-megawatt space nuclear power engines. You got an RL-10, weighs a few hundred pounds, and it does a better job. And you don't need the shielding, and all the rest. So NASA's decision on this is going to drive ISRU to the top of the chart, and it's going to put serious space nuclear power on the chart. Okay, that's what
both of those are huge advantages to space development and space settlement, because you need the power and you need the processing of use of in situ resources. Space settlement will never occur without those 2 elements. Those are both crucial.
Precisely.
And force that is right in favor of where you and I have been wanting to drive our society in space development exploration for decades. So,
exactly.
Amen.
So this is the thing. What NASA did by choosing SpaceX and choosing only SpaceX, okay, they might have wanted to choose 2, but they didn't have enough money. And in a way, it was fortunate because it forced them to bet on only the right horse. And the implications of the decision are very far-reaching. Oh, yeah. And in terms of the technologies that are now enabling, and in terms of the kinds of things we're going to do, because yes, now it becomes about space development. Okay, if you're not going to use local resources, if you're going to basically look but not touch, or touch but not do anything, okay, flags and footprints, well, then you don't need ISRU, or you don't think you need it, because especially if you got a very small ascent vehicle, you can take the penalty of delivering the propellant to make it go up by bringing that from Earth. But if you've got a serious ascent vehicle like this, you damn well better make your propellant there. And now you're talking about processing. And now here's the thing about ISRU. Okay, people like me have been trying to sell ISRU to NASA by showing its advantages for exploration missions, because NASA has only been interested at most in exploration missions. And, with, for instance, the Mars Direct Plan, I showed a very strong advantage for Mars exploration missions in doing ISRU. But you might say these are strongly mission enhancing. For space development, they are enabling, okay? And furthermore, I mean, look, what defines whether any place on Earth or space is habitable for you, a place where you can actually live as opposed to visit? It's whether you can take the materials that are there and turn them into resources.
Amen.
That's it. That's what defines whether you can live somewhere or only visit. So once ISRU becomes central to the program, then we are not talking about just visiting. We're talking about living there. We're talking about space development, okay? Developing the worlds in space to become places where people live, work, produce, invent, everything.
Amen to that. So you what do you see as the next step? I know before we get to, I know your ultimate goal is to terraform Mars. What do you think is the next step to developing a Mars settlement?
Well, I think it's to establish a robot base on Mars. Now, you know, in March, a few weeks before NASA announced its decision, and I have to say, I did not expect NASA's decision to come down this way at all.
That's great.
I don't think anybody did, but I certainly didn't. But what I published an article. I published a couple of versions of it, one in Scientific American, another in Space News, calling for establishing a robot base on Mars. I said, NASA says it wants to send humans to Mars. If it wants to do that, it needs a heavy lander. And I put the requirement there at least 10 tons. Okay. That is, the Perseverance landing system can land 1 ton on Mars. That is not enough to support any human exploration plan. You need something that can deliver at least 10 tons. And by the way, the Falcon Heavy could shoot a 10-ton lander to Mars. SLS or Starship could shoot a 20-ton lander to Mars. And if Starship is refueled in Earth orbit, it itself is a 100-ton lander for Mars. Now, so why did I said, okay, well, we want to have a lander that's this good. If you ever want to send humans to Mars, you got to have a heavy lander. And hey, NASA, you don't even have to believe in human Mars exploration to see that this is a good investment, because you could use this to support massive robotic missions to Mars. You know, instead of landing one rover, you could land a platoon of them, you know, like the LSTs landing on Normandy Beach. The plank comes down and the robots come running out and fan out all over the terrain. And, you know, we could have several Perseverance style rovers and a whole bunch of MER style rovers. And we could have helicopters, not the size of Ingenuity for a 2 kilogram, actually, toy helicopter, but 200 kilogram helicopters that can fly hundreds of kilometers, heavily equipped with all sorts of scientific instrumentation, ground penetrating radar.
Bob, I've flown balloons and launched rockets and balloons. I'm going to tell you what, the balloon altitude that you typically fly to is 100,000 feet. Well, the atmosphere is just like on Mars. Flying a helicopter with the air that thin is amazing. Although CO2 is denser than the air on Earth, that gives them some advantage, I suppose. It certainly gives my Venus habitat concept a lot of advantage, but maybe too much. Buoyancy is pretty easy in Venus atmosphere, believe it or not. Just wrap hermetically seal a house and it'll float at about 50 kilometers with the pressure and temperature like on Earth. But I'm really impressed that they're flying these helicopters on Mars, and the abilities to do those kind of things and the kind of transportation systems we can have there. That impressed me immeasurably, just from the standpoint of, hey, one of the balloon projects I launched was for JPL. They had this Martian Aerobot concept. Now, the balloon was actually flawed by the manufacturer Raven. It did not succeed because of a manufacturing technique, but they had this concept for a balloon that we're going to fly on Mars at the 100th atmosphere. I've been involved in that. That was a private thing I did on the side.
Right.
For JPL, as you know, I had started my own private company, High Altitude Research Corporation. We launched balloons and rockets from them. In fact, I got one of these Space Pioneer Awards back in 1997 for Space Entrepreneurship. It's just my pockets weren't as deep as Elon Musk, as you might know. You've probably seen, you may have one of these yourself, I don't know. But you certainly handed a few out. What a lot of people may not know is that you and I both have had the distinction, dubious or otherwise, of having served as chairman of the executive committee of the National Space Society, which is their CEO. Then you went on to form the Mars Society. Who knows? Maybe I'll start a Venus Society one day. But hey, I got a Mars habitat concept in the work too. You might know that in Kitely, some of my friends, Michael Laurie had set up and taken my habitat concept and scaled it for Mars. And there's a simulation of my Mars habitat, or my habitat concept on Mars. I can show it to you if you'd like sometime. But it's a lot of fun. I've done some videos on that, and he's still developing. He's working real hard on it. And,
yeah, no, it's cool. I also, along with you, of course, I was very interested in Mars balloons and all sorts of Mars aircraft. Yeah. I actually did some calculations in the 90s on Mars electric helicopters, and they showed that they were theoretically possible. And apparently JPL did the same calculations, but they actually went ahead and did it.
Yeah.
And this is, I mean, just think about this. This is just a huge advance in exploration capability. The rovers can travel 200 meters in a day. A helicopter could travel easily 200 kilometers in a day. That's 1,000 times as far. And it can't be stopped by terrain obstacles. Can't be stopped by boulder fields or canyons or anything. You can fly into a canyon, land in the bottom of the canyon, check it out, and fly out of it again. I mean, this is huge. And I mean, think about it. Okay. You know, I think in a very few years, we can go from toy helicopters to, you know, motorcycle-sized helicopters that can, like, comparable to MER rovers. But then we can have real, I mean, human helicopters. When astronauts go to Mars, they could travel by helicopter. Okay, you know, I mean, this is the kind of mobility we can have, and also use little helicopters as drone scouts to help out the exploration that way. So this is great stuff. But anyway, to land humans on Mars, we need a heavy lander. Well, guess what? We're going to have one, and it's going to be Starship. Okay. And because I mean, what's essential to this whole lunar flight concept of operations is refueling the Starship in low Earth orbit. If you don't have that, then Starship is just a heavy lift booster with a capability of a Saturn V, but 1% the cost. Okay. But
yeah,
if you can do that.
By the way, that's why I got two of these models, is because I wanted to be able to show the refueling configuration where one's a tanker and the other is going to Mars or wherever else.
Yeah.
And that's an enormous capability to be able to do it. It's great ingenuity. I'm glad they're going that direction. And hey, by the way, they would also work in the Venetian atmosphere, and this would make a great strong back to build on top of, to build inflatable structures. I love it.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, these were made, actually built for me by a friend of yours and mine, Ben Huset. You might remember from the Minnesota.
I remember him.
Yeah, from the Minnesota L5 Society group.
In fact, you know, there's a film of me giving the first public presentation of Mars Direct, which I gave at the National Space Society conference in Anaheim, California in 1990.
I was there.
And that film, which can be found online, the first public presentation of Mars Direct, that was made by Ben Huset. He was the guy with the camera who caught it on video.
Yeah, they went around, him and the Shefties family, they went around and recorded a lot of stuff for that, on behalf of that check free and assessing all these ISDCs. And yeah, they're good people. I really think the world of them. And that's one good thing, that we had a lot of friends from that era and a lot of good contacts, people that really cared about space. And we collectively, we've all moved this ball forward, but you've done so much by being such a nonstop voice that, you know, at first it seemed like an impossible dream, but look what's happened. It's been amazing.
Exactly. There's nothing can stop an idea whose time has come, provided the idea has some messengers that can spread it.
Bingo.
And so, you know, the idea recruits Elon Musk, and now we have SpaceX.
Amen.
And the idea recruited Bezos. He hasn't done as much. Hopefully he'll
start. Maybe he'll wake up now. You know.
Yeah, he's got to get out of the hot tub. Now,
I love it.
Yeah, he does. You know, so one thing I got to say about Musk is he works very hard. Got to tell you, if there's one thing that might trip him up, is he could kill himself with overwork.
Let's hope he don't, because, you know, I'm thinking he is really the linchpin, the key to that whole operation. Although Gwen Shotwell is really amazing. I met her probably before I met Musk. You know, I was at a conference with her, a little workshop where there's just like 5 or 6 of us there at JSC early on, talking about trying to lower the cost of space transportation through private enterprise and things like that. And she really impressed me there. And so I hope that at least she could carry it on. But let's hope Musk don't do anything crazy. We don't want him going on the first flight anywhere in his spaceship. He needs to stay behind like the commander, you know, and send his troops out. So because we need his vision, that's what I like about it. It's that gusto, the willingness to take the risk, the willingness to blow things up, burn things, because that's how you learn stuff. You don't learn stuff by just, you know, being uber conservative. You have to take risk. You got to break things and blow things up to learn stuff. That's, you know, that's what I love about building my own rockets way back, is There's nothing will humble you like a rocket, but there's nothing will teach you like a failure.
That's true.
And you build from that towards success, because all these other guys are running on theory. They're running on models and theory, and they make a lot of big assumptions, and they build big stuff and have colossal failures or colossal underperformance.
Mm-hmm.
With these big companies. So Musk has been out there taking the chances. He's the willingness to burn things, to blow them up and keep going. I love that.
Now, I think, though, that, Musk is certainly a rare bird, but there are other people out there in the world that are as capable.
Oh, yeah.
But Musk is helping to recruit them to do this. In other words, we want there to be more Musks. Guess what? Whether he wants them or not, Musk is making more Musks happen, because by proving that it's possible, by proving, here you are, you're a person of great ability and so forth. And, you look at space and, for a long time you say, well, I could do that, but would I really succeed? It's once it's shown that it can be done, other people will do it. The secret of the atomic bomb wasn't given away by the Rosenbergs. It was given away at Hiroshima. Okay. As soon as, because the Soviets knew that nuclear fission and atom bombs were in theory possible, but for the scientists to convince the people with the power to actually commit the resources to do it, they had to convince them it was possible. And what convinced them it was possible was being shown that it was possible. And so Musk has shown that this is possible. And therefore, all sorts of people out there with all sorts of capabilities are going to get into the game. Now, to get back to this thing, we build a robot base on Mars. Now, we can send very substantial exploration robots out, okay, greatly help Mars science. But also, especially if you've got 100 tons landing on Mars, we could land teams of construction robots, perhaps humanoidal in form with legs and arms, or at least wheels and arms, or something that they can actually build stuff and set up the ISRU capability in advance of the human mission, set up power systems, set up all sorts of things, so that at that point, the surface of Mars becomes the second safest place in the solar system. The base is prepared, okay? The area is explored, resources identified, but the habitation is established, the power system is established, propellant has been made in advance of their arrival, you send the crew out. So this is how, the Starship established a robot base on Mars, followed really within just a few years with a human base. And I also think that, okay, by making Starship integral to the lunar mission, it makes ISRU very important for the lunar mission. It makes high power systems important for the lunar mission. And this is a place where I think government has a role. It would be very hard for a private entrepreneur, even one like Musk, to develop a space nuclear reactor because the materials are tightly controlled. So this is where basically what we space advocates have to do is tell the government, we want you to team up with Musk. We want to make this a public-private partnership. Let's bring the stuff to the table that he can't bring to the table. He's bringing a hell of a lot to the table. He's bringing the transportation system. That's the biggest single thing. Okay, it's probably as big as all the rest put together, but all the rest put together does amount to a lot, including lunar and Mars spacesuits, ISRU systems, power systems, surface mobility systems. Yeah, for Mars, human flight helicopters. Why does Musk have to do everything? Okay, he's got $180 billion, I hear, but Biden spends 10 times that much every month. And he
hands it out everywhere.
So let's meet him halfway. And I think, by doing what he's doing, he's doing a better job of recruiting people to the space cause than almost anything. You know, because now, I mean, look, it's true. Space advocates, science fiction, operating for the past 50, 60 years have spread a vision in the culture, a vision of a positive human future based on human expansion into space. Okay. You know, when Star Trek was first proposed, nobody in Hollywood could get what it was about. I mean, it literally couldn't get what it was about. And now it's clear. People understand what it's about, that there's a galaxy, that there's planets, that there's space, that this could all be a domain of human activity and infinite possibilities. And now here's Musk coming along and saying, you know that vision? We can make it real. Uh-huh. And so, you know, the wood has been dried and he is bringing in the flame. And the and so we're going to have a bonfire here. Now you know, I'm very hopeful right now. I am much more hopeful than I was a year ago. A year ago, yes, the entrepreneurial revolution was making progress, but NASA was doing this crazy lunar thing that wasn't really going to do anything, and it had no connection with Mars, and it was, you know, but here, you know, we're moving.
Amen. Amen. And this is, you know, for decades, the space advocacy base was just a couple, you know, the real core was just a couple thousand of us who had the dream and could see it and really see the where this could go. But it is metastasizing now that people see that this is actually possible. Holy smoke, it's going to catch on. And there's room for a lot of entrepreneurial people to get involved and engaged in this. As you pointed out, Musk can't do everything. There's going to be all kind of opportunities, whether it be the asteroids, whether it be in Earth orbit, or it be Moon, Mars. There's so many possibilities now. And Venus, as I've been bringing up, there's a whole broad spectrum of opportunities. You know, hey, I wouldn't mind having the first Martian redworm company, Red Planet Redworms. No, actually, you know, I do sell redworms, by the way. That's one of my businesses, and I do pretty well there. So, and it's part of gardening, and it's part of the ecosystem, which we're going to need in space. And I've got these habitat concepts which will serve very well on Mars, by the way, Bob. As you know, I got a friend who, as I mentioned earlier, put one together for Mars on a Kiteley simulation. So, terraforming.
Well, terraforming will follow Mars settlement. Okay, that is, as I see it, the way this goes is, okay, Mars goes in several stages. First, robotic exploration. We're doing that now. Yeah. Next will be human exploration, which we'll be doing pretty soon. I believe by the end of this decade, there'll be humans on Mars. Then it moves to base building, which is, instead of having 10 people on Mars, having 100, 200, 500, because what you're doing is, as you develop the capability to turn Martian materials into resources, you develop the capability to support more and more people on Mars for a given amount of transport activity, okay? Because most of what they need, they're getting from Mars. Now, and the more of them there are there, the more, as it were, inventors that are there, the faster the rate of development of new Martian resources become. People do not use up resources. People are the creators of resources.
Yes, yes, yes.
No such thing as a natural resource. There's only natural raw materials.
Right. You know, hey, you know what really strikes me? I hear all these reports. Well, cattle use up so much water per year. It's like, okay, that water doesn't disappear because it goes in the cow. No. It doesn't cease to exist. What are you talking about? You're nuts. It's stupid. It doesn't even make sense. What comes in goes out, and it goes back into the environment. You know, I keep hearing these people throw out these BS concepts like, "Oh, we'll use up this, we'll use up." No, you don't. You might transform it. but it's still there. It still exists. Matter is neither created nor destroyed, not by the powers of humans in our
Right.
universe.
Way back about 1870, a reformer named Henry George wrote a book named Progress and Poverty. I don't know if you've ever read it,
No, I haven't.
but not many people know about it today, but it was very popular at the time. And he wrote a refutation of Malthus in there. And Malthus was saying poverty is going to always be because people will always multiply and use up the resources, and they'll always do it to the point where they are starving to death. And there's nothing that can be done about that. And
Yeah, look how bad we're starving today.
okay, and Henry George said, what's the difference between a man and a jayhawk? Okay, the more jayhawks, the fewer chickens. The more men, the more chickens. Okay, that is okay. So we create resources. Well, the more people we have on Mars, the faster we will create resources on Mars. Okay, the just need to send resourceful people there. Now, so that's the base building phase. Now, as the base grows in size and capability, numbers, there'll be some people who will decide they want to stay longer periods. Probably whoever's running the base will strongly incentivize them because most of the cost is transporting them back and forth. So, I mean, it'd be worth it to say to somebody, hey, we'll give you $1 million if you stay on Mars an extra year. Okay, that sounds good to me. I'll do it. Well, so you get some lifers over there. So you'll get relationships. You get children. Okay, children born on Mars. I think we'll have our first explorers on Mars by 2030, a permanent base by 2040, and we'll have children growing up on Mars by 2050. And that means schools and all the institutions of a society that it needs to be a full society, community theaters, everything. Okay, and so that's when Martian society, new branches of Martian civilization are born. And I think there'll be quite a number of them because, we're not going to be alone in this. Chinese, they'll be 5 years behind us. Okay, but they'll be there. And others will be there too. You don't know. But sure, it's a big world. And that's a good thing because there's lots of talent out there. And they'll bring it to Mars and they'll start new societies. And those that have the best ideas and have and offer people the best opportunities will draw colonists and they will grow. Okay, the one people say extraterrestrial colonies will not have freedom. They're off their rockers. If they don't have freedom, no one will go there.
Bingo.
Okay. It's essential. Just like freedom in America was the greatest driver for our growth as a nation. It's what brought immigrants here. Okay. The freedom and opportunity is what brought immigrants here. Okay. Nobody's immigrating to North Korea. And so
Venezuela.
there you go. Now, so then new Martian societies will be born. And I think they're going to be very innovative. They'll have to be. And this, by the way, people ask me, what will be the Martian economy based on? I say it'll be based on exporting inventions. They'll have all sorts of necessities that lead to invention. They'll have a need for ultra productive crops because their farmland will be limited to greenhouses. So they'll do genetic engineering with no holds bars. They'll have a labor shortage, okay, just like we had, okay, which is why America got into labor saving machinery so big time in the 19th century. Well, they'll have a labor shortage that'll put the 19th century America to shame. So yes, labor saving machinery for sure, but robotics, artificial intelligence,
robot base.
Yes, they'll do this. And power. I think the Martians will be the ones that'll develop fusion power. People are interested in fusion power on Earth. I mean, some people are, but they say, well, what do you need to do that for? You can just burn natural gas or coal or solar panels or waterfalls. Or
you have organizations like the DOE who seems to be happy that we're always working on a forever project because if we ever finish it, the project's over.
Right. But if you have a situation where you don't have fossil fuels, except those that you make, and that requires energy in the first place. And you certainly don't have waterfalls, and the wind is too thin to matter much, and solar energy is only 40% as thick as it is on Earth. But you've got a planet where deuterium is 6 times as common as it is on Earth. Say, oh, fusion power. And they'll develop fusion power for their own needs, but then they'll license it on Earth and all these other things, okay? But fusion power also starts giving you the capability for interstellar flight.
Amen.
So
And
Mars is,
it doesn't have to be a fusion system that has the closure like an energy production plant. It's just got to be able to, you know, give you your reaction so that you can energize the matter and expel it, you know. So
oh, you mean on a rocket?
yeah, on a rocket.
Well, that's true.
For propulsion. I'm thinking for propulsion. You're thinking for power. Yeah, for
Yeah.
power, yeah, you still got to have the case where
Yeah,
you're
but
over
yes,
unity.
but a fusion
you don't have to have
rocket-
an over unity system for propulsion.
An open-ended fusion rocket
Yeah.
can give you exhaust velocities
So-
of 6-7% the speed of light, which
Yeah,
is
yeah. So that's probably realizable in the maybe not too distant future.
well,
People to Mars.
I think it will come later this century,
Yeah.
but I think it'll be the Martians that will give it to us. You know, British invented the steam engine. Americans invented the steamboat because we needed it because our highways were rivers and you had to go both ways.
I've seen Robert Fulton's grave in Trinity Methodist Church up here in New York.
Yeah. Okay, but that steamboat, by the way, Claremont, okay, that's 1807. First railroad in Britain was 1825. But there you go. Okay, so there's young America, which at that time had a population about a fifth that of England.
Mhm.
Nevertheless, making a very important innovation, building, yes, on British ingenuity for sure, but still making an important contribution because we needed it. And then steamboats and steamships transformed the world, along with railroads, which the British.
And necessity is the mother of invention, so it just goes with that. So the Martians will have to be inventive.
Exactly.
And here's another thing I do like about your robotic villages. I worry about if you just send a starship there and you land it and there's nothing there, how do the inhabitants of that starship manage themselves after being in weightlessness all that time? They need something there to give them some support. You got a lot of risk your first few missions there. If you got an existing support infrastructure there, your chances of survival has been amplified quite a bit.
For sure.
You've got a really good concept with that. I really appreciate it.
Now, once there's human societies on Mars of substantial, then we can start thinking about terraforming. See, people talk about terraforming it as if it's Earthlings that are going to do it. Earthlings are not going to do it, okay? Because it's a big job, and why should we do it? I mean, it's a completely academic proposition for us. We don't live there. Why would we be concerned? Why would we devote substantial resources to altering the Martian environment? The people who would be willing to put a lot of work and money and effort and thinking and inventing into altering the Martian environment are the Martians. And because they're making their own planet better. And I'm sure they'll do it because frankly, it'd be unnatural, literally unnatural if they didn't. That is, it's the nature of life to take barren environments and transform them into places that are friendly for the development of life. That is why life on Earth has been a success. Life continually transforms barren environments into places that are more fertile, okay? And that's why there's oxygen in the Earth's atmosphere. It's an artifact of life. That's why there's soil on the continents. It's an artifact of life. A number of years ago, I went hiking and I was sitting on the top of a small mountain and looking around at other small mountains around me. I was just about at tree line, and the other mountains had trees, obviously going all the way up them to tree line. And I began to think, how'd those trees get up there? How'd the trees get up the mountain? Okay. Well, it's because these chipmunks, and I saw them running around with the pine cones, and they transport the seeds of their forest. Okay.
The terraformers.
They are literally terraformers. They made the earth, and similar creatures made the Earth what it is. And in particular, what they did by doing that was they expanded their habitat. Now think about this. The pine trees were their natural habitat. There are other animals who have different plants as their habitat. Those that successfully expand their habitat maintain and expand their species.
And there you go. That's the argument for space development.
Yeah. So, you know, the chipmunks know it. We need to learn it.
We should be as smart as a chipmunk at least then, right?
Well, look, we have been, in all fairness.
Yeah.
You know, when people settled America, you know, they plowed the prairies and made farms. And, you know, and of course, in the 19th century, people thought that this was a very good thing to do. And those who did it, I mean, may not have given medals to every pioneer farmer, but nevertheless, as a national enterprise, they were admired as people who were expanding the frontiers of civilization, which is exactly what they were. And so we have to be pioneers too, in exactly that sense of the word.
Yeah, I just bought 40 acres in the high desert of Arizona, and I'm planning to go out there late spring, early summer, and hopefully put a well in. So I'll be using the in situ resources of that place to try to make something productive out of it. And it'll be a good Mars analog and my habitat concept. I might have a little fun there. Maybe you'll have to come see me sometime. Sure.
Maybe you could drive up to Utah, check out the Mars Desert Research Station.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'd love to do that. We can collaborate some. That'd be interesting.
So, and then finally, let me just say something, which I think is very important to be said, because before we started this podcast, we were talking about stuff, and you mentioned, you know, it looks good, but you're afraid we're going to blow it all away. And yeah, that is the real menace we face. The real menace that humanity faces today is not global warming or resource exhaustion. Global warming is real. Resource exhaustion is not. But nevertheless, real or not, neither of them were the cause of the major disasters of the 20th century. The major disasters of the 20th century were caused by bad ideas. And in particular, one bad idea, which is there isn't enough for everyone. So we have to kill each other to see who's going to get what there is.
Bingo.
Okay. And that is the thing that almost destroyed human civilization in the 20th century twice.
And we're still dealing with that, and it's nonsense.
Yes, exactly. But if we can show that by working together, we can open up whole planets, then it becomes evidently absurd to be killing each other, fighting over provinces.
And there's too many people that feel like that other people belong to them. You know,
right.
They got this obsession, possession. You're mine, you're mine. You know, but people got to give that up. That's not right.
Right.
People should have the right of self-determination.
Right. But people need to also understand that other people are not fundamentally their enemies. They're fundamentally their allies. That is, the nations of the world are not in a struggle for existence over limited resources. We are a rather unruly family, but nevertheless a family of nations in a joint enterprise to expand the resources and opportunities and frontiers of all humanity. You know, why is China advancing its living standards so rapidly right now? Because of inventions from electricity through computers that were made in the West. Okay, but how did the West get its renaissance in the first place? Because of inventions like paper and printing that were made in China. And so inventions made anywhere ultimately benefit all of us. And the diverse geniuses of different societies benefit each other. Okay, but people don't see that. And they got to see it. And the way we can make that most visible is by accomplishing something grand, by pioneering space.
Yeah. So one thing that we have to deal with today is just the personalities, some leaders in the world who who think that they can have it all. Like even in the 20th century, there was, Adolf Hitler, and some people would today compare Xi Jinping to him, or other people. There may be similar comparisons of people that, may have grandiose ambitions that are a little bit too more than maybe they should have. So, how do we contain that kind of expansionism? How do we deal with that when these
Well,
people are
I
targeting
just think,
a powerful nation?
once again, it's the fundamental assumption that there's only so much to go around. That was the fundamental assumption that drove the nations of the world towards World War I, which set up the situation for World War II. And the you know, Hitler, Germany needs living space. Germany never needed living space. Germany today is smaller than the Third Reich with a larger population, and yet it has a much higher standard of living. Why? Because of the advance of science and technology.
Bingo.
Okay, which Germans have certainly contributed to,
Yeah.
but so have many other peoples, including both very notably people they were trying to exterminate. So,
which is your people.
Yeah, and so they would have been much poorer had they succeeded in their enterprise.
Bingo.
Okay, because they could not get rich by exterminating other people and stealing their land and their cattle. Okay, the way we got rich was by all of us inventing stuff, expanding stuff.
The Germans want the same thing the Russians want today, the Ukraine.
Yeah, well, that's a different game. There, Putin is just trying to stop Ukraine from succeeding, because if it does, then Russians will see that freedom is the way forward, and he doesn't want that. That's why he's engaged in that. And that, by the way, is why I think we should give Ukraine all the help we can in order to make them a success. Okay, because if Ukraine succeeds, Russia will become free. And if Russia's free, we'll all be friends.
There you go. Well, we definitely got to find ways to make friendship. Bob, one thing that occurred to me back in the 90s when I was earning that Space Pioneer Award, working out of a couple of garages, one to build avionics, one to build rocket parts, was that we were, as a group of young adults on a shoestring budget, just a handful of people, accomplishing what it took superpowers to do, just a handful, a few fingers of decades earlier. We were literally doing that. What we were accomplishing took a superpower to do. And the idea of technological proliferation just kind of stuck in my mind that, the tech, between biotech and, now nanotech and whatever technologies we're coming up with, we've got to find ways to get along, or we will have the equivalency of weapons of mass destruction type technologies available worldwide at the fingertips of all kind of people that hate each other. And we've got to find a way to overcome that. We got to find ways to get through that, because we are our own worst enemies. It's not the resources, it's not the environment, it's how we deal with each other. We've got to find ways to get along, hopefully by painting common dreams. That's one way we can elevate our vision, to not to pick on each other, but we've got to work on that even more fundamentally. We got to damp out all this hatred in the world.
I like that. Paint common dreams. Paint them across the sky.
There we go. There we go.
I think
you're certainly a partner in that endeavor. You've definitely been a leader in painting dreams by painting. You came out so many years ago and told us, hey, we can go to Mars, and we can go to Mars now with what we got with your Mars Direct. And you said there's no point in messing around. We can do it. We can do it now. And you were an early advocate of in situ resource utilization. That was the key thing that made the Mars Direct possible. And you've been involved in so many other leading things. The MagnaCell, for example. You might make a quick mention of that, because I was kind of impressed with that too. So,
well, I'm going to have to go soon, but magnetic sail is a method of propelling a spacecraft using a magnetic field. It creates drag against the solar wind, which means the solar wind is pushing it, and you can propel a spacecraft that way, or you could deorbit a spacecraft that way against the Earth's magnetosphere, or you could decelerate a really fast interstellar spacecraft without propellant by creating drag against the interstellar medium. Yeah. And that, I first proposed that with Dana Andrews back in 1988. At that time, it wasn't quite possible because, well, and we said so. We said it needs high temperature superconducting wire.
Right.
But now that wire is coming along. We thought it would come sooner, but it's coming now. And so I think there'll be magnetic sales too. So listen, Greg, I got to go.
All right, very good.
All
Bob,
right.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on my channel. I hope we can do this again soon.
All right.
If you're not subscribed to my channel, subscribe, bang the notification bell, and click off for more of these kind of videos. I hope to have Bob back. Always enjoy talking with you, Bob. You're very much an inspiration. So I just want to say thank you very much for being here, and thank you to everyone else for watching. So everyone have a good night.
Okay, bye.
Bye.